let me also say the job of caregiving, I think that there are 3 immensely difficult jobs, and those are parenting, teaching, and caregiving. And caregiving can be profoundly frustrating and exhausting, and on the other hand, it can be very gratifying. And the frustrating part has to do with dealing with the repetitive behavior, words, actions of a person who has a dementing illness, and dealing with keeping them safe from harm, safe from falls, safe from abuse, neglect, self and otherwise, protection from illness, protection from isolation. So that's a great value of caregivers, protecting their loved one from these things. So that's a great value of ours as caregivers. Another value of ours as caregivers is telling the truth. So how do we balance those 2 values? Protection from harm and telling the truth. So as we weigh those values, I think we need to consider the therapeutic fib in that light. And I think naming the values conflict is helpful in a situation like this. It helps us forgive ourselves for telling the lie, because sometimes the lie does less harm than the telling of the truth. So we're lessening the harm. We are telling a lie, but we're lessening the harm by telling the lie.
Because if you're a caregiver and you have a profound need to tell the truth, who is that for? It's for ourselves.
Who is it for? Who is it for? And what is our duty at this time?
Right.
What is our
therapeutic fib is for the person that we're caregiving for, and
right.
the truth for ourselves.
Right.
So to get ourselves out of the way, often that resolves that conflict.
Right. And I know you have a story too.
I do. My aunt and uncle who lived in Minnesota, we call it the great up north in Cross Lake, and had retired up there to this really beautiful cabin on a really beautiful lake. And it was my uncle's proudest place where he loved it there. Got a sense of his identity from being there. And when he developed Alzheimer's and dementia, and they needed to move here to the metro area to be in a senior housing community, he eventually moved to memory care. He always asks, when can we go up north? When can we go back to the cabin? And my aunt really struggled, because when it came time to sell the home, she really, really wanted to tell him that she had to sell the cabin. And I had to have a conversation with her about, don't tell him. Because if you tell him on Monday morning at 9 o'clock, by Monday morning at 9:15, he's not going to remember, and you'll have to tell him again. And every time you tell him, you're going to break his heart. So why would you choose to do that to him when our job is to keep him safe, emotionally comfortable, and even happy if we can figure out a way to do that?
Yeah.
So we had the conversation about her needing to tell him the truth, but she felt guilty, like she was keeping something from him.
Of course. Of course.
She had to get out of her own way so that she could find a way to do what was best for him and not satisfy her own needs by avoiding guilt.
And I think also we need to acknowledge the difficulty of doing this. And the difficulty has to do with, we've spent a lifetime developing an honest, trustworthy relationship that has integrity with our spouses, with our parents, with whoever it is that we're caregiving. That relationship is based on integrity. Integrity is an enormous number 1, number 2 value in our families. What is the first thing that we teach our little monsters when they start talking? What do we teach them?
Always tell the truth.
Tell me the truth. We start teaching this to our children as soon as they learn how to talk. So it is so ingrained in us to be truthful, to be honest. So this is the hurdle that she needed to leap in order to tell this fib. And how did it turn out with your aunt and uncle?
She ended up not telling him, she still tries to reorient a lot. And that's based on that truth and integrity and trying, we will always probably default to reorienting, but she, in that one instance, chose to not tell him about selling the cabin. She distracts him a lot when he'll bring up I want to go to the cabin. She'll distract a lot. And I don't even know that she can name that skill set that she's developed.
She probably talks about all their great memories that they have of the cabin. Yeah. That's a great technique. I'd like to point out to anyone who might be listening to this podcast in the future that the Alzheimer's Association has a really good handout regarding therapeutic responses and emotional truths. And that can be found if you Google Alzheimer's Association plus communicating using a therapeutic response. You'll get a 3-page paper of theirs that defines a therapeutic response. And do you mind if I read that, Lisa?
No, please do.
The Alzheimer's Association says a therapeutic response is one that relieves the person's confusion or anxiety and keeps their sense of dignity and worth intact, looking for the emotional truth of the situation, and using validation focuses on empathizing rather than contradicting. Because even people who have advanced Alzheimer's disease retain a lot of emotional truth, and they retain a sense of connection with you. So they might not know you're my niece Lisa, but they're going to know from your body language and your face that this is somebody who cares about them, and they retain that emotional truth. So to connect on that emotional level is really important. You're not going to connect on that intellectual level. You're not going to connect on the cognitive level because that's lost. So that's the Alzheimer's Association's definition of a therapeutic response. They also have a very lovely paragraph on why we should use a therapeutic response instead of the total unadulterated truth. And the reason is because there's a disease process here. We're not going to tell a fib or a lie to somebody who's fully capacitated just to make things easy on ourselves. Say your uncle was sick with heart disease and needed to sell the cabin and could process the information about selling the cabin. Then your aunt really wouldn't have a leg to stand on telling him a lie about selling the cabin to pay for his care because he can process that information. But somebody who lacks capacity to process that information, it's fair. And in fact, it's more than fair. It's a kindness in many situations to tell a therapeutic fib rather than the whole unadulterated raw truth, which may hurt and frankly be harmful to a person who has advanced dementia.